Good morning. Welcome to another episode of Better You Life Coaching. Uh, this is the first ever live stream, and there's been some technical difficulties with user error. My apologies. I have been speaking into the ether for about 15 minutes now, and yeah. So, all that being said, to kind of take it back from the top, um, I wanted to touch on a man and his value. This was inspired by the recent, the last couple of weeks of the whole Eboni K Williams situation, um, and the input from different commentators on it, such as Jessie Woo, the ladies on the View, Kim Foster, you name it. Uh, Basically, if they got an asshole, they got an opinion on it. And I don't mean that divisively. I'm sorry. It's a little early. Trying to be on my classy. But kind of to recap the situation for those who don't know, Dr. Yana Vanzant made a comment on the Breakfast Club that she felt a lot of women today are basically men in skirts. Eboni K. Williams admitted that she felt a little triggered by it and wanted to have the conversation with Dr. Vanzant. What ended up happening was she began to ask a question about how women who have found some success, status, so on and so forth, how they should comport themselves when they find the selection of mates very lacking from across. And it was interesting that she noted across from the entire spectrum of race. And that's when the famous clip came about where Dr. Vanzant asked her, would you date a bus driver? The reason I wanted to kind of come on here was to offer a different perspective and challenge that way of thinking for the ladies who have that type of view. One, your preference is your preference. This is not about shaming or saying that you have to date anybody. You know, honestly, if you want to date a dire wolf, go date a dire wolf. That's your preference at the end of the day, but it is to offer a different perspective. For me, I found it interesting that in all of those commentators, Dr. Vanzant, and ironically, the non-Black ladies on The View were the only ones that really talked about the value of a man outside of dollars and cents. Eboni Williams herself had at least 3 follow-up appearances that I know of in which she doubled, tripled, quadrupled down on things that were said, but never talked about any value that she saw in men and masculinity beyond a dollar sign. Excuse me. And and to me, I want to offer a different perspective because I often hear some women talk about the the men that they encounter being excuse me, y'all. I often hear that type of woman talk about the men that they encounter and make statements to the effect of men are intimidated by me, men are intimidated by my money, men are intimidated by my status. And I have to have somebody who is is extraordinary in order to have a hope of things working out. And I've always found that very interesting because, and this is purely anecdotal, I know that successful people can sometimes have a little bit of an intimidation factor. And it's not necessarily that you're intimidated by that person, but it comes into a complex where sometimes we ourselves don't feel that we are deserving. It happens in other aspects of life as well, in which, say, for instance, if you've been gunning for this job promo, you get it, and the money is way more than you thought it was, or the duties and responsibilities, you feel the gravity of them, and you feel kind of like sometimes you can feel like you're the imposter, and because of that, it can kind of tend to shape how you interact with others in those settings. Um, However, the thing of it is this: um, when you talk about a woman such as a Miss Eboni K. Williams here, who is a true one percenter, you have to realize that the hypergamous dating standards in which the man is the breadwinner, that classic white patriarchal relationship archetype, is one that for minority women, in particular Black women, may not be the most feasible and may not be the best route to personal fulfillment in relationship and happiness. And this is what I'm getting at with that. White supremacy targets each and every people group differently. Even within the Black race, men and women are targeted vastly differently by white supremacy. There are things that I have encountered that my female peers, colleagues have not, and vice versa. And we think of, uh, we tend to think of white supremacy as a hammer that just beats everybody across the head. When in actuality, the way that we should, a better euphemism for us to conceptualize would be like this: it is not a hammer smashing everything indiscriminately in its way. It is a scalpel carefully cutting, and it is precise, it is targeted, and it is purposeful. And when you talk about certain things like Ebony did in her initial interview, such as Black men and where their wealth is in comparison to certain other groups, she used Indians in particular. Um, there's context that's needed. And the first is, it's easy to say that the average Indian man makes 110,000, while the average Black man makes like 40K. Two things. One, our population is 10 times theirs. And then two, the other part of it is we have been here for hundreds of years and been subject to discrimination and exclusion. And we really still are to this day. It's just a lot of things from a policy sense have moved to a stance of benign neglect in relation to Black men and paying lip service to Black women. When you have things such as the H-1B visa program, which is a direct pipeline into high-paying tech jobs that have been going on for decades, and most of these people are immigrating, or if they've been here for a little bit, they're descendants of people who immigrated and were able to either take advantage of certain things or, like that H-1B visa program, build connections, get in, and create a pipeline for others to come behind them in their family or their communities. So when you put it that way, it's not that Black men are intrinsically lacking in some way in the manner that Miss Ebony tried to portray it, but rather there are several systemic factors that contribute to who gets what opportunities, who's able to capitalize on what, and whose work goes farther and whose work doesn't. And the thing of it is, in a dynamic and for this day and time in which culturally things are shifting, in which women have really truly entered the workforce in mass, they've benefited from public policy that has pushed them into education. They're benefiting from a lot of initiatives that are pushing them into certain fields, especially certain high-paying ones such as STEM, as well as their dominance of heal fields as well. Um, it's not a surprise that on an economic standpoint, when you look at the younger demographics, it's really where there's well, younger generation rather, it's really where this is taking place. It's not a surprise to see parity, and for Gen Z, for those who've entered the workforce, it's showing where a lot of those women are out earning their male peers in that generation group. So being a woman who's a breadwinner, being a woman who's in that position where they have found that crazy success, and even just to normalize it and bring it a bit more down to earth, even just say to become the woman who becomes a director and is making like 150K or something like that, who is very well off, who doesn't have an economic worry. Um, it was notable that economics was still the most important thing that was being looked at by, I believe her name is Sunny Hoskins and Ebony and all these other ladies. And it's one of those things to where, at least from my perspective, I think it would be rather liberating because now I'm not constrained. It's one thing when, and I have a good degree of empathy. I understand why earning is important for a woman. It doesn't make her a gold digger to want to have make sure that her mate has some type of provision. Um, but it does come a point in time where, say for instance, if you're a literal millionaire, why am I really worried if dude has it like that or not? Like there's plenty of guys who are good standing, good character, who make 60, 70K and or even just the average 40K, who are good character and would be a great fit for that person outside of the dollars and cents. And honestly, I really don't see how the dollars and cents is a worry, because if you have it, especially when she talks about in her follow-ups, it's about building generational wealth. And I'm going to get to that before I close out. But it's one of those things to where a man is much more than a provider. And so much of today's society has to steal a man's value down. Sorry, work alarm going off. So much of today's society has distilled a man down to simple dollars and cents. And this is, I feel like this is a grave injustice to both men and women. It creates a ever more unrealistic paradigm as the societal shifts continue to take place. Because in a world where you have parity, there's going to be a lot of women. In perfect world of parity, they would be half the women would earn more than their male peers. I mean, somebody's probably going to come across some relationship arrangements where there's a bit of a slant in terms of those economics. But a man is much more than just his ability to provide. Is that man discipline? What is that man's character? Does that man have love in his heart? Is he fatherly? Is he patient? Is he a protector? Is he an enabler? And a lot of these qualities that I'm listed off are qualities that come straight to mind when I think of my father, my grandfather, my uncles, my cousins. Um, I might be a little bit of a unicorn, but I really, I really haven't had very much proximity to dysfunctional men throughout my entire life and upbringing. So when talking about certain things, I have a large degree of empathy because I know that these people do exist. But in my personal life, um, I mean, there's something I would want to emulate from nearly everybody in my life. There's something that I have emulated or picked up from a lot of folks in my life, and it's value that I get from them, even from their different perspectives. I have some friends who are complete opposite of me in terms of how we view things, but there's a respect, earnestness with how we communicate that it makes it easy for us to excuse me, it makes it easy for us to be able to share those different perspectives, debate things out, and it becomes a situation where iron sharpens iron. Or sometimes you find out like, hey, I did not have this particular piece of information, and because I didn't, maybe I should change my view. Maybe I'm wrong here, and it becomes something where I need to do a little bit more research, or I need to do a little bit more introspection. Or in cases where it's a personality thing, in a personal conflict, it becomes a thing to where it's like, you know what, Dre, maybe that temper done got the best of you. And I know that they're right. And it's just simply I gotta go through what is it, the 7 stages of grief to before I finally acquiesce and become that person that's like, I was wild a little bit. And the other thing that I found interesting was in the subsequent follow-ups of Ebony Williams, and a lot of the online commentary and, like I said, ladies on the view, like Sunny Hosses in particular, it was interesting that it became about generational wealth. And if I'm this elite person, I have to have this equally elite person in order to build wealth. And to me, um, that's a goddamn lie. And the reason I would say that is when you're talking about large sums of money, and I know a million ain't buku rich, but it's rich enough. I find it hard to believe that you cannot build generational wealth with that type of money. And once again, it's not to say that they should go for a man who's sitting on the couch playing Xbox or anything like that. They can go for what they want to go for. It's simply to say there's other values of men and masculinity. Values which excuse me, and a lot of values which we as a society don't don't seem to really promote, push, and spotlight anymore. I'm just going to use my own family as an example. Pretty much all the guys in my family were blue collar, and my father definitely was a blue collar man. And I remember when I had my first real job, and I had my wife, and she was a stay-at-home mother at the time, and my son, and trying to make everything work. I remember giving my pops a call, and he had told me, he was like, "Yeah, son, I don't think I told him what I was making at the time. It was like 1250, and I was budgeting and trying to do everything, and I was feeling the crunch. And he told me, he was like, "Son, I ain't never uh, made less than 50K in my lifetime." And the thing of it is, he was able to build and amass wealth, properties. Um, for the majority of my youth, he ran a landscaping business seasonally. Um, and it's similar things for my other uncles and whatnot, and my grandfather. And you can you have to understand two things. One, as a collective in Black America, we are not in a position to where we have substantial wealth to pass on. The collective wealth of Black America is less than 1% right now in this nation. And I think you have to be honest with yourself and have a real reckoning. Black folks are trying to play Monopoly with somebody who's already gone around the board 200 times. And this is a game in which most of us is not going to win. Really, not any of us is going to win. But we can get some things so that we can have comfortable lives. And that's the reality of it. Under the capitalist system, that's too little too late to out capitalist capitalism. It's just a reality. The thing of it is, for those who do have that type of money, Eboni K. Williams, I want to say, was said to be worth about 3 million liquid. Um, and for most folks, the way that their wealth is built and passed along is through property, through real estate, and through homes. So building and creating Black wealth isn't so much through marriage, which it could be, but once you've gotten to that level, that is a wealthy level in which a couple generations of your family should be set up after you're gone. At least if you got a 3-4 million, like, yeah, 2 or 3 generations of your family shouldn't have to really worry about financial consequence like that. As long as you're smart with your resources and your assets. And it's one of those things to where that person, even the other person, if that guy makes like 50, 60K, hey, his pot in comparison to your pot might not be on parity, but you never know what that person might have in them. They might have a great idea. They might see some business opportunities and ways that you could leverage yourself. They might have a business within them, but they just didn't have the capital to start it up. They could be so much, but when you immediately close the gate to simply add, hey, if this person doesn't cross this bar, then it's not gonna happen. That's cool. But we also have to realize, like, that type of mindset is harmful to, in my opinion, that type of mindset is harmful to the prospects of a super successful person. Because as you become more successful, there's less people who's more successful than you. And it's going to become a point in time to where, uh, just to use an example, like earning 100K is roughly like 10 to 12, it fluctuates, like 10 to 12% of people in the country make that type of money. So a country of 330 million roughly, you're talking about 33 million. All right, and you start going up and up and up. You're talking like a mil or more. All right, now you're talking 1%. So like a little over 300,000. And that's the part of it that I'm really trying to challenge. Like, if the goal is to have a person of equal status and economic standing to show off, to essentially accessorize with, okay, cool. But if the goal is really truly happiness, there is a grappling that has to occur, because a man is more than a paycheck. A man is more than his bank account. A man is not a walking wallet and a dick. And the fact that so many of these women didn't talk about character in their analysis was something very concerning to me. I've been in rooms with some executives. I've been in rooms with guys who I know have it, are wealthy. Their bonuses are millions. And I can tell you, it's the dice roll. Like, sometimes you meet those guys and you like, oh, I know he got some bodies in the trunk. And then sometimes you meet those guys and like they're sweetest people ever. Like, it is such a crapshoot. Money does not make you a good person. Money is not a marker of character. Money is not a marker of integrity. Money is not a marker of reliability. And the concerning thing about it is, especially as a father, of both a young boy and a daughter, it's it's concerning, because a lot of the commentary, and granted, they aren't outright saying this, but it does come across this way. Just as a man listening, a lot of times it's like, yo, the character don't matter if you got the money. And if that's the case, are you saying that if a man has the money, he could abuse you? If a man has the money, he can run around on you. If a man has the money, he doesn't have any obligation to you, or doesn't have to honor his obligations to you. If a man has the money, I'll put up with anything if the man has the money. And that's the part that was really concerning. Um, and I would really, once again, for the ladies who have that type of mindset, I would really challenge them to think about what are the things that they truly need in a man. Because I can say, from a male dating perspective, I personally have never looked at a woman's income in terms of evaluating them as a mate. And I have looked at their jobs just as a simple measure of ethic, work ethic and whatnot. Somebody who does certain jobs and professions, I do feel is, they really need a pat on the back sometimes, like doctors, nurses. Um, some people have mentally rough jobs, like, going into work in medical and knowing that, you could do your damnedest and somebody might die. Like, that is something that can be rough. And, I'm dated a few nurses. I'm dating I've dated one. And it's you know, thankfully they didn't work on those floors, but I remember them telling me one day about how one of their colleagues was, and two people got lost on that watch. And, you know, they kind of have to just suck it up and keep it moving. Go on to the next one, punch out, go get themselves back together, and come back into it. And even with what I just said, in that type of dynamic, with that type of profession, think about, because some nurses make very, very good money. You talking some clearing six figures easy. I know nursing, LPN, RPN, all them acronyms. I don't know the acronyms, but I know there's some that they get back. But just think about it. That there's a lot of women who are in healthcare. There's a lot of women who have probably either gone through that, losing a patient, or know somebody who has. And think about the quote unquote guy on that level. Like, say, for instance, a lawyer or something like that, or maybe even just the doctor. That person's that person might be on call. Person's probably away. That person has to do certain things in order to build their wealth and sustain their wealth. And this is going beyond the character. But if you need support, if you need availability, um, there's a certain freedom that I would feel would come along with dating in such a manner to where if you have it economically and that is not a major concern of yours, I think that really frees you up to be able to fully evaluate a man for what the most important aspects of manhood are, which to me are character. Is that guy dependable? Is he reliable? Does he speak life into you? Is he a support? Hell, fuck it. Does he believe in you? Is he one of your biggest cheerleaders? Is he trying to make sure that you and everybody connected to him is in the best of situations? Does he try to contribute to your life in any way that he can? Those are some of the questions that I think should really start to just bounce around in someone's head versus how much money do they make. But what do I know? Like, comment, share, subscribe. Peace. I'm out.